we have a great new video from Midas Touch that hits Trump and his promises to bring us what he called amazing, tremendous healthcare. Take a look.
When we win on November 8th, we will be able to immediately repeal and replace Obamacare.
My first day in office, I'm going to ask Congress to put a bill on my desk.
I hope we're going to surprise you with a really good plan.
You can end up with great health care for a fraction of the price, and that's going to take place immediately after we go in, okay? Immediately.
On my first day,
You're going to be very proud of what we put forth having to do with health care.
I know that we're all going to make a deal on health care. That's such an easy one.
form a really great plan.
You've been in office 3.5 years. You don't have a plan.
Well, we haven't had, excuse me, you heard me yesterday. We're signing a health care plan within 2 weeks. A full and complete health care plan.
I've been saying this for a long time.
All right, I love that. Healthcare. It's so easy. It's gonna be so easy, and everybody's gonna have healthcare. What happened? What happened? I thought we were gonna have great healthcare. Everybody's gonna be covered. Really? Well, that didn't happen, because we could really use that right now. We could use healthcare that covers everybody, insurance for everybody during a pandemic. It's not like the American people don't want it. No, polling shows that 70% of Americans support improving and expanding Medicare for everyone. I mean, Medicare, we already have it. It works. People like it. It can be improved. And, it turns out there's a plan to improve it. Oh, right, but it's Bernie Sanders' plan. And he's not running for president anymore. So now Biden isn't doing that either. And Trump, 100%. Not doing that. In fact, we saw exactly what Trump and the Republicans wanted to do with healthcare, and we rejected it 100%. Okay. And so what Trump did, and we'll go to the substance here, is you guys remember that for the first 2 years, President Trump and the Republicans had complete control of Congress. They had the time where they could put together a pretty great healthcare plan, right? As they say. What did they do? Well, they cut taxes for the rich instead. And not only that, but he also defunded the ACA. And then finally, after so much pressure, the Republicans scrambled to put together a plan that was somehow even worse than the ACA. Remember, I say worse than the ACA because generally the ACA was fairly bad. Better than what we had, true. That doesn't make it a good plan, right? And you know why it wasn't a good plan? Because it was their plan to begin with. And the Democrats, President Obama, essentially stole it from Mitt Romney, right? And so somehow we got under Trump, or would have got under Trump if it weren't for the late John McCain, we would have got something far worse than that. Okay. And so if you guys forget or had forgotten about what was in Trump Care, it basically was a series of tax cuts, tax credits, high risk pools, no real guarantee of pre-existing conditions, despite, of course, lying about it, and focusing on health savings accounts. So the problem with health savings accounts is that we live in a country right now where 40% of Americans, this was pre-pandemic, right? Where 40% of Americans could not afford a $400 emergency. 60% of Americans could not afford a $1,000 emergency, which $1,000 is less than a lot of deductibles in these insurance plans. So now, if you can't do that, if you can't afford a $400 emergency, then how the hell can you contribute to a health savings account? It's kind of impossible, okay? And look, that was the Republican plan. It went over like a lead balloon. And of course, here's why. Because it was a hastily put together non-plan. And so the whole Republican strategy was not to come up with real solutions. No, the whole Republican strategy was run against Obamacare because Obama bad. And they used people's misunderstandings of the ACA, right? First, they called it Obamacare. And so people didn't know the distinction. People didn't know the actual name of the legislation. In fact, there were reporters that went down to Kentucky. Now, Kentucky had set up a state exchange, right, called Connect. And it was actually pretty popular with Kentucky residents. They were able to buy a plan, right? And they generally were like, okay, yeah, we like this, right? This is better than what we had. And then they asked people, so, well, okay, what do you think about the ACA? What do you think about the Affordable Care Act? What do you think about Kentucky's Connect? And they're like, oh, yeah, I like it. Yeah, it works out. It's pretty good. What do you think about Obamacare? Hate it. Hate it. That's socialism. Well, wait a minute. Same thing. In fact, Connect was only created because of Obamacare. And so Republicans took advantage, as they often do, of people who don't know facts, right? People who are misinformed or disinformed. And there it is. And so people also didn't like the individual mandate. I didn't like the individual mandate either. But it was a linchpin of the ACA. It was a necessary idea, but it was implemented very badly because what it did is that it did punish people who couldn't afford insurance. I mean, it punished people who were not, poor enough to get Medicaid, or of course in states that also didn't expand Medicaid. But it also the same people who couldn't get Medicaid, but also couldn't afford expensive health insurance. Those people got screwed, and so they were not happy about this. Okay, but the Republicans, they used all that to run against the ACA for the last 10 years. They had no plan themselves. Actually, about 12, it was about 10 years. And the reason they couldn't go against the ACA is because it was their own plan. And they wanted to use cheap political points to get back into power. And it worked with Donald Trump. And you could see that they had no plan, just vapid, empty bullshit. And that's what it was. Their plan, as Alan Grayson put it, generally is don't get sick. And if you do, die quickly. Die quickly. And the Republicans, again, failed. 100%. So now, that said, were the Democrats a lot better? Well, okay, let's look at it, right? So Democrats, generally, like different wings of the party, have better ideas, right? So now, the best idea is Medicare for all, okay? They've got that idea, and it's incredibly popular. Over 88% of Democrats support that plan. And yet, the party apparatus does not want to do it. They don't want to do Medicare for all because the money they get from healthcare companies. And of course, you have pushback from union bosses who, in some cases, get kickbacks from selling private health insurance to their members. The obvious choice here is Medicare for all. I mean, you've seen it from the pandemic, right? I mean, the average, and this blows my mind, right? And it should blow your mind. The average COVID-19 treatment is around $70,000. That's how much it costs. Why do we not have universal health care? That's what we need. We need Medicare for all. Because here's the thing. When this pandemic is over, right, and it's not going to be over for some time, after the smoke clears, you're going to have tens of thousands of Americans with, number one, medical debt that they're never going to be able to afford from getting treatment for coronavirus, right? Not only that, there's a recent report out that looked at the damage, long-lasting permanent damage to people's organs, hearts, lungs, kidneys, damaged from the coronavirus, right? Some of those conditions will require treatments, medications for the rest of their lives. And if you cannot afford insurance or you have a gigantic deductible to pay, well, then you are absolutely screwed. So the only solution here is single payer. So when you look at the difference here, yes, you've got Republicans who are an absolute disaster, who have absolutely no plan, which is why they should never be voted back into office. But then also, you look at the Democrats who have better plans, but refuse to enact them and support them, even though the fact that a massive majority of the American people and their voters want that plan. And so, look, I understand that in this election, the choice is obvious. But going forward, we need to support Democrats who support Medicare for all. And so never let Republicans back into power, because this is what they do. They have no plan. But be careful about who you choose as Democrats.